Without a doubt, this is the best I have felt coming out of a draft in a very long time. And honestly, if you compare it to recent drafts, perhaps it might be the best draft class in a very long time. Not only because, hey, they got some good value, they took obvious players, good value, positions that made sense, very little amount of reaching. They stayed ahead of the trends. They weren't chasing trends. The strategy worked out, and they had an absolutely home run UDFA class. I believe the 2025 draft class is going to be pivotal for the franchise, as it was strategically designed to not equip necessarily Drake May with the weapons, which if you listen to some of the media, it's like, oh, this was for Drake May to outfit him with what he needs. Yes, but I think actually it goes to a higher level than Drake May. I believe this was to equip offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels with the necessary tools to recreate a version of the dynamic and versatile offense that had success from 2016 to 2018. After years of rebuilding and adjusting, the Patriots front office understood now with McDaniels back, they have the chance to thrive and truly resurrect this offense. But it required a significant infusion of talent and a variety of talent across the board. And I think this draft class focused on bringing in players who could fill in key roles, creating depth and flexibility within the offensive structure. Of course, among the most notable additions will be Will Campbell, a highly skilled offensive tackle. I've spent plenty of time going over why he was the most obvious pick for the Patriots. The guy is going to anchor that offensive line. He's going to bring balance and stability to that pocket. Give Drake May some time, which will allow Josh McDaniels to actually unlock a lot more chapters of his playbook. Now, interesting, next, it's going to be TreVeyon Henderson, a versatile running back who was added to bring the dynamic, explosive playmaking ability out of the backfield that has been missing in recent seasons. Now, while Kyle Williams Jr., solid wide receiver, he's going to add some more depth, playmaking ability. Obviously, he's great at separation. The Patriots also invested heavily in the interior offensive line with Jared Wilson to come in as a center. Very athletic, very explosive. Not only is he going to provide protection to Drake May, but he's also going to open up some holes for those running backs. Now, the undrafted free agent signings, home run, right? Guys I pointed out months ago, guys I've been pushing for since July of last year, Efton Chism and Lan Larison. Two promising athletes with intriguing athleticism, but are also, by profile, key pieces to those 2016 and 2018 offenses. Another one that's interesting to note for 2016 and 2018 offenses, CJ Dippre, a tight end who contributed both in inline and is a respectable receiving threat, along with several fullbacks that were brought in, who will add versatility and some muscle for short yardage and blocking situations, possibly be the next Devlin. And of course, I'm going to specifically omit the defensive players taking the draft because I want to focus in on the McDaniels side of it. I believe this draft puts McDaniels back in a position to replicate the offensive balance, creativity, and explosiveness that made the 2016 and 2018 squads so dangerous. These additions, along with strategic combination of power, speed, and flexibility, could very well set the stage for a return to a high-octane offense that once made the Patriots one of the most difficult offenses to defend in the NFL. And add the guys in that are currently on the roster and recent free agents, and you got ingredients to really remake that second dynasty, which relied on tough, hard-nosed running attack, versatility, adaptability, game plans, matchups, play calling, next man up mentality, and also the do your job mentality to the offense. Now, looking back at Josh McDaniels and his years as offensive coordinator, we can always look back to the 16-0 years, obviously with Brady and Randy Moss. Okay, there's also the 2010, 2011, and 2012 groups, which are also really impressive, especially points per game. I think 2010 they were first, and 2012 they were first. 11 they were third. and that's when Brady was winning his MVP. Very efficient offense, very great with short passing. That's also when you had the Gronkowski and Hernandez tight end offense. 2012 was also very interesting because they went no huddle, hyper speed offense, and they obviously led the NFL in yards and in points that year. But I don't think we're there with those types of offense, obviously. But that second stint, specifically talking again about that 2016 to 2018 time frame, balanced power spread, still had Gronk, but you had Edelman, you got James White, obviously leading to Super Bowl wins. If we take a deeper dive on that 2016 to 2018 offenses, the roster construction and like the core philosophy shift, like pre-2016, they were faster, more explosive spread elements. 2016 to 2018, McDaniels built a power spread hybrid, emphasizing versatile skill positions, right? So wide receivers who can move inside and out, running backs who could catch, good pass pro, toughness in the trenches, obviously that fullbacks, some heavy tight end sets, and adaptability to week depending on the opponent. So you can go run heavy or pass heavy as needed. They didn't care about fantasy stats. They cared about matchups and situational football. Now, quarterback, yeah, you got Tom Brady in there. He was still elite, but no longer throwing 40 times a game. Super quick release, still the fastest time to throw in the NFL from 2016 to 2018. That's what Drake May's going to have to work on, right? Super quick release, doesn't have to throw the ball 40 times a game, but we're looking still at a heavy reliance on some pre-snap reads and some option routes. As far as it's been reported, Drake May's a pretty smart dude. So if he can get his quick release up and he can start doing these pre-snap reads and getting these option routes going, I think we're going to be okay. Now, offensive line, you had Nate Soldier and then Trent Brown at those times. You also had Joe Thuney, Andrews, Shaq Mason, and Marcus Cannon. Now, looking at the current offensive line, I'm not going to say that Will Campbell is Nate Solder or Trent Brown, but I think we can say that having Will Campbell in the house, you're going to have a solid left tackle. Left guard, biggest issue. I don't think we have any Joe Thuneys in the house right now. Maybe that's something we need to consider. Maybe there's got to be some development there. Cole Strange, hopefully he's coming back. Keep in mind, this will probably be the first year, if Cole Strange makes it, this will be his first year where he is going to be healthy, hopefully going in, and the first year where he's going to start and hopefully finish with a legitimate offensive line coach. His first 2 years didn't really even have one. And last year he came in, Scott Peters trying to do his thing, but he didn't really show up until November because of the knee. So hopefully Cole Strange is that. I'm praying that we have the guy in house. You have several guys coming in at center. Hopefully one of those guys, maybe not going to be David Andrews at any point, but just somebody legitimate for that center position. Right guard, I mean, it was Shaq Mason back in the day, a dominant run blocker. Mike Onwenu. Right tackle, Marcus Cannon. Awesome during 2016. You could say Moses matches pretty well with Marcus Cannon. I think that's fair. But the big thing there is they valued athletic and smart linemen. I think for the most part, that's there. Now, the running back room during that time was a variety of different talents. James White, Sony Michel, LeGarrette Blount, Deion Lewis, Burkhead, Brandon Bolden. All those guys brought something a little bit different. And keep in mind, this is something to note. McDaniels carried like 4 or 5 backs during those years with defined roles. So I expect to have at least 4 running backs on the team this year. Now, wide receivers during that time, of course, we had Edelman, but don't forget Hogan, Cooks, Amendola was in there, and also under the radar, Dorsett and Mitchell. Although short times with the team, but those guys, when they're out there, they were able to produce. Noticeable, they didn't have a dominant outside alpha wide receiver at that time, but what they did want was precise route runners who can option route with Brady. So smart and precise runners. That's what you're going to need in this offense. Now, of course, tight ends, you got Gronk, then you have Bennett, and then a very overlooked tight end during that time frame, Dwayne Allen. Really great blocking tight end. Looking for CJ Dippre there. And of course, the most absolutely critical piece to this offense, and yes, I actually would say that as a piece, This is what defined the offense for the most part. I know Brady and all the players that everybody wants to talk about, what kind of defined the 2016-2018 run, James Devlin. He helped them shift to 21 personnel, so 2 backs to 1 tight end, which obviously created matchup hell. We know the fullback's coming back, and they just brought in, and they're bringing in just about anybody to find somebody that can do it. Because what that will do brings back the 2018 smash mouth with play action. That was the Sony Michel behind Devlin-led power runs, and then he had Edelman out there doing option routes. Deadly wasn't exactly the most, electrifying, fun, most explosive offense to watch, but it won the games and was nauseating to the other teams. And of course, it's not just that. There's some hidden keys in there as well throughout the 2016, 2017, and 2018 offenses. Depth mattered. Again, always that next man up. You always had a Hogan, Amendola, Burkhead stepping up at specific times. There's some really important games where Hogan, Amendola, or Burkhead were key in the playoffs, right? And of course, they were heavy on specialists. You had Devlin, Dwayne Allen. Those guys were obviously not going to put up a bunch of fantasy numbers, but they were crucial to the scheme and game plan specific. McDaniels would always completely change the offense week to week, passing heavy versus the Chiefs, or power run versus the Chargers or the Rams in the 2018 playoffs. They would do run-heavy pivots, especially in 2018. They transitioned mid-season to be a run-first team to protect Brady. This is what McDaniels can do with the right roster. 2016, you lost to the Eagles, but that was the defense really that had a problem. 2017 also had the Falcons. Obviously the historic 28-3 comeback to the Falcons. Our last Super Bowl against the Rams, it was a defensive slugfest, but what actually allowed them to win was powered by the ground game, right? Forcing the defense to over-adjust and then opening things up for Brady to just dissect them. It was perfect. It was great to watch. It wasn't explosive. It wasn't the Moss days. But if you respected the strategy and the orchestration, it was beautiful to watch. Now, typical Patriots personnel groupings during that time was, again, 11, you had 12, 21, 22, even empty sets. Those were all thrown in. And that was because you had McDaniels picking those things out, but then also the roster to do it. 2016, more of that spread the run attack, a little bit heavy personnel, 12 personnel. That forces defense had to go to nickel to stop Edelman and Amendola, so McDaniels would just run against light boxes. He'd bring LeGarrette Blount in, beat him up. It was awesome. They could morph into a full power set when they were ahead in late games. Over and done with. 2017, a little bit more vertical stretch, and big thing was matchup manipulation. Still mostly 11 personnel, but you had Brandon Cooks in there, now forcing safeties deep. More empty sets in the third downs, which would isolate James White on linebackers. That was great to watch. Obviously, Gronk would just bully safeties, and then you'd have Hogan and Amendola to work underneath. And of course, during that time, you'd still have Cooks around then. He would speed stress the defenders that had to respect his speed, opening up massive windows for Gronk and the backs underneath. Get those guys moving, gain momentum, plowing through guys. 2018, back to that smash mouth play action attack. That was the major shift. Again, back to the 21 personnel. That was Devlin with a running back. Get Gronk, Dwayne Allen in there as well. That was common in the late half of that season. And that was just to run the ball down the opponent's throat. Play action from heavy sets. Control the time of possession, especially against the Chiefs in the AFC title game and the Rams in the Super Bowl. People didn't, and still for some reason don't respect what running the ball does to win games. What's nice about this is that you didn't have an amazing offensive line at that point. This offense at that point was designed to protect Brady. He had less deep dropbacks, required quick reads, and less physical exposure. Keep him upright. The game plans protected Brady, and it made sense for the offense. As long as you had the right personnel, both in terms of style, but then also mentality. If you had no ego, right, during that time, you had McDaniels and Brady. They didn't chase stats. They happily ran the ball 40, 50 times if it was the best path to victory, right? And you also need to have a chameleon offense. Some weeks, like the Charger playoff game in 2018, full smash mouth, beat them up. And other weeks, in like Steelers in 2017, full spread attacking linebackers and coverage. And notably, we had Gronk, and of course that was important, but this wasn't 2011 Gronk at this time. It's in that 2018, that's when Gronk added the elite blocking tight end to his repertoire. He was good at blocking, but that's when Gronk's blocking was phenomenal. This helped lead to the outside run game behind Trent Brown and Joe Thuney. That was masterful to watch. That was unlocked by Gronk being a bully. And of course, I have to reiterate, during that time, smart, versatile linemen, specialist backs, matchup exploitation with the guys you have, personnel disguise, and then situational dominance. All 5 of those things were critical in that second dynasty. Now, why is that so important? Now, if we look at the 2025, let's look at the wide receiver room basically right now, right? You had Diggs, Hollins, Booty, Douglas, Bourne, Polk, Baker. You got Kyle Williams, and also make note, you got Efton Chism and John Giles. So, right, that's, I think, basically everybody. Now, if you're looking at that, you have Steph Diggs, a legitimate Alpha 1 wide receiver. He can win anywhere. He's a technician, great on isolation routes. You can put him in X, the Z, the slot. Great suddenness, still deep speed. Hopefully still has his deep speed and excellent footwork, right? So put him anywhere. Now, Matt Collins, big dude. He's like 6'4", 220-ish, right? Straight line speed, though, he's not that slow. I think he runs in like the 4.5s. I don't know if he does that anymore, but still a big body perimeter wide receiver. Great blocking specialist. Can be awesome on occasional deep shots, right? So he's like an X, maybe throw him in like a big Z once in a while. Booty, he's interesting. Obviously, he's right around 6 foot, 200 pounds. Now, average speed post-injury, but good yak. Can work in the slot, can work in the Z. Great short area, tough guy. Zone beater, ball in his hands. He's actually decent yak, right? Pop Douglas, 5'8", 5'9", 190 something. Lightning quick though, right? Elite stop start. I think his 3-cone was like a 6'7". So he's gonna be in the slot, but he can also be a motion Z. Now, would he be a modern day Edelman? Kind of. I would probably put him more towards the Amendola, but I still think he could be an option route specialist if need be. And then Kendrick Bourne, good short area quickness. Hopefully the knee holds up this year, but great hands though. And he can work in the Z in the slot, but much more of the possession wide receiver, a chain mover, third down security blanket if needed for Drake, as he was for Mac Jones. Now, Jalen Polk, he should be a good body controlled, build up speed, XZ receiver. More the intermediate route runner who is supposed to be tough over the middle, but can do some boundary and some seam work. Hopefully he has a resurgence. Baker, just as much upside. Now, what's interesting is all these guys I've talked about, now Steph has this, but out of everybody I've mentioned before, Javon Baker is a ball winner. He's still your best go up and get the ball, and he's actually pretty good after the catch. I'm hoping he takes a really big step this year. I don't know if he struggled last year to understand the offense. I don't know if he's going to have a great shot this year, but right now, of all the names I've mentioned, he's definitely the most physical contested catch player on the roster, and the yak ability is actually still pretty good, but he does lack that vertical top gear, so I don't know where he's going to fit in. Hopefully something works out for him. Now, with the additions this year, you got Kyle Williams coming in at 5'10", like 180, 190. So he's not that much bigger. He's a little taller than Pop, but weight-wise, about the same. Now, he's quick and reliable, very good underneath, but what's interesting is he's a slot Z guy. He can work out on the X. I know he's got some releases, but guys, if he's honestly going to get popped by, he's 180, 190 something pounds. If someone's going to come up and pop him, he's not going to get a clean release. He'd have to be incredibly elusive to get off clean. The great thing about him is that he comes in and there's nobody except probably Steph Diggs because of how great he is, and then Matt Collins because of his build. But Booty, Douglas, Bourne, Polk, and Baker will be stressed by Kyle Williams coming in. Great pickup. Now, the notable one here is probably Efton Chism because he's coming in as a UDFA. I obviously did an analysis video on him. He's not going to stress out Diggs. He's not going to stress out Hollins. But he's going to put the stress on Pop Douglas. But I'll also point out, you're like, oh, yeah, Pop Douglas, we already have a slot. But keep in mind, I just went through that McDaniels had both Edelman and Amendola on the squad at the same time, right? So keep that in mind, because he can play slot and the Z. Now, he might be more of a possession depth piece at the moment, but one thing he's really good at, that Edelman is really good at, finding those soft spots in zone. You want a guy that can do the spot or the option route. Here you go. That's Efton Chism. And last but not least, John Giles. Now, finished the year on practice squad, but here's the thing. He's your only prototypical X receiver right now on this squad. Now, Steph Diggs being the alpha, he's XZ in slot, but if you want the big, deep shot guy, has the size, the speed, the upside, he's raw, but he's there. So there's developmental outside threat there, possible deep shot guy. Probably going to be practice squad, but maybe with some development, he's in the system, something there for him. Now, for short area separation guys, obviously Douglas is going to be there, Kyle Williams is going to be there, and now you have Efton Chism. If you're going to want to do quick strikes, move the chains, I think all three of these guys have a shot of being on the roster. Seriously. Demario Douglas, Kyle Williams, and Efton Chism are your short area guys. These are your slot dominators, getting separation. All three of them can do it. They're not the most explosive in some cases. You have to have the right play. You have to have the right setup. But if you're looking for option routes and quickness, which McDaniels loves, I believe all three of these guys have a shot of making the roster. Now, the intermediate part and the vertical stretch players, you got Bourne, you got Polk, you got Baker. Diggs is going to help out on that. I mean, Bourne, maybe kind of like you could see him as a Chris Hogan, but a little bit smaller. Polk has more of the Malcolm Mitchell build with intermediate toughness. And Baker kind of similar with both Hogan and Mitchell. He's the one stylistically doesn't really fit in, but at the same time, like I said, he's the one guy that is probably the toughest contested catch guy. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. But one of them has to figure out to be that intermediate over-the-middle toughness guy that was essential to 2016 and 2018. I'm not sure who. I don't know who could be the Hogan, but someone needs to figure out. I'd probably have to put it on Polk. Now, true field stretchers, obviously Diggs, Hollins, and Booty can work that. This is obviously the weaker grouping here. Obviously, Diggs can definitely stretch vertically, but is arguably even better underneath. Now, Mac Hollins being vertical on occasion, but he's a big body, end zone target, not a true burner. He's coming in to help block, contribute special teams. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to unlock Drake's deep ball. Now, here's the one that could do it if he's 100% this year. Kayshon Boutte. Now, the last couple years, you would say he's not the field stretcher anymore, post the LSU injury. But he looked better last year than the year before. And just watching him move, he looked better. And is still a young guy. I mean, he's younger than both Polk and Baker. I have to take a look how old he is compared to Kyle Williams or Chism. But it's possible that Kayshon Boutte is still the youngest guy in the room right now. This is the weaker situation, the true field stretcher. Yeah, I think Kyle Williams could do it, but once he starts messing with real perimeter cornerbacks that can press him, that have the speed, I'm not really sure if he's going to have the highlight tape that you would see against like Portland State or like New Mexico or some of the other teams where he smoked them, playing, the 111th passing defense out of 130 in the nation. Keep in mind, that's one thing you got to keep in mind about Kyle Williams. Like some of his highlights, just check the helmets that he's going against. He's not going to be able to pull all those things off at the NFL level. I hope so, because especially if McDaniels can scheme it in, it's going to be explosive. But don't put him into like the immediate true field stretcher. Honestly, the question is, can Diggs still be that vertical threat though? But what's nice is that you're going to get some gadgety yak utility guys. I can't wait to see what he can do with Pop Douglas. There's obviously a lot of gadget work with him. Javon Baker could be very gadgety if you can build him into more of a Debo style receiver. And Boutte actually does have some yak ability. What's really nice about Boutte is that he can actually block, because he can be a little gadgety in that respect. Now, what could happen, which is interesting, is he consider Lan Larison in here. He could be a wide receiver running back hybrid, which would be like a motion stressor like Cordarrelle was in like 2018. He'd be the interesting one there. He could be in the gadgety yak utility and not just a pure running back. So overall, wide receiver room strengths versus 2016 and 2018, I think the short area quickness is going to match. Between Pop, Diggs, Chism, and Williams, you've got enough guys that can just snap people off. The intermediates are pretty saturated, actually. It's just figuring out who's going to take over the role, because I think Polk, Baker, and Bourne, Booty, all those guys are reliable versus man and zone. And then Diggs is something that we haven't had in a very long time. An X, a Z, a slot. One can actually, I can't think of anybody who really, in modern Patriots history, has been able to function at all three. This guy is a real chess piece. He might not be as fast or as quick as he was, but the guy can do that. And although the injury is going to question, can he do it all again? But he's there, and he's out in the field, and you think defenses are going to be like, oh, yeah, he can't do that anymore. I mean, no. Having him out there is going to stress the defense, regardless if he's the target or not. Now, the weakness is, I would still say there's not that pure vertical 4-3 speedster. I know a lot of people want to think Williams is going to be that. I just don't think, because he's not really amazing over-the-shoulder catch guy. He can turn and face up, but that's kind of where he would get beat. I know a lot of people want to go watch the highlights. Watch the whole games. Where he was struggling is when he has to be deep and has to turn and look and spot the ball. It's not great. He's amazing where, he's getting the ball in his hands real quick. The vision, the instincts, combined with the speed and the footwork, he's deadly. But I don't think we really can say we have that pure vertical 4-3 speedster right now. And the gadget player, not an obvious one, I would say, Pop in combination with Lan could be that. Maybe see some perimeter jet, screen demon, which we can really stress the linebackers and safeties horizontally. If you can figure out somebody, there's enough athletic talent there. It's just their profile and what their production has come from is just not popping out on the screen at me. But thankfully, there's an Edelman, there's an Amendola. I think there's a Hogan in here somewhere, Mitchell in there. I think Steph Diggs could be kind of Brandon Cooksy-ish if healthy. Cordarrelle Patterson, maybe put Lan Larison in that role, but not true. I mean, he's not as big as Cordarrelle was, but maybe that's there. The extra depth guys that are going to be deadly are going to be probably Kyle Williams and then Efton Chism. Those guys can come in and change things up. Definitely stronger at the slot versus 2018. There's plenty of options for that intermediate route. Legit number one with Diggs. Definitely better is size. Most of these guys are over 6 feet. So like at the X receiver, Diggs, Hollins, Giles, maybe. You can actually put Kayshon Boutte in there because he had to do it last year, so respect to that. You can also throw Kayshon Boutte into Z or the slot. Very interesting with that. It's actually quite how I think about it. Kayshon Boutte kind of actually has very similar profile to Diggs, just not as quick or as fast, but I think the dude could work at all three. Polk is going to have to figure out what he's going to do with Z. Bourne's going to have to battle that with Z. Baker's probably going to have to work some X and Z. Slot receivers, obviously you have Demario Douglas. Boutte can be in there. Kyle Williams is going to be in there. Efton Chism's going to be in there. But if you want to look how this thing's going to open up with this roster, the quick game and intermediate game should work. Now, not a lot of people like that because you're not taking deep shots. It's not fun, and obviously is not going to really work. May has an arm. But there's guys on the team that can work on this. It's not like 2016, 2018 where there's barely anybody who can work deep. There's deep guys. But they did just bolster the quick and intermediate games, which is important because that's going to help stretch. You're going to allow your quickest players to isolate against nickels and safeties. You're going to kill soft zone. You can attack linebackers and the cornerbacks, leverage on quick throws, 3 to 5 yards, really easy, 2nd and 6 conversion type plays, right? like 3 and 5 yard outs. That keeps things moving. It forces linebackers to get involved, and that can open up the run, and then vice versa, right? The run can open this up. It just constantly puts the defense in a losing situation just by, what are you going to throw at us? We don't know what you're going to do. And you have guys out there, someone's going to have to get open some way, and they already know it, because if you have a smart cerebral quarterback, they can take a look at the defense and they're like, this guy's going to be open, and there's nothing the defense can do about it. They're just going to get picked apart, which will then open up the deeper stuff, more big explosive plays, both on the run and the pass. Quick game that's 0 to 7 yards. Douglas, Bourne, Chism, Diggs, Williams. Those guys are going to kill soft zone immediately. Option choice, which would be Douglas. You can put Diggs, again, Chism, which will isolate the quickest player versus their safety or nickel. Slant flat. I mean, Bourne does pretty good with that. Polk does that. That's going to attack the linebacker or corner leverage. And then you put quick outs on Douglas, and one of the best outrunners in the entire NFL draft, Efton Chism, 3 to 5 yards out. He's basically the best at it. So again, going to that really quick conversions on 3 and 5 yard outs for the 2nd and 5 or 2nd and 6s, there you go. Just on that 0 to 7 yard quick game stuff is absolutely a migraine to defenses, because it happens too quick. There's too many options, both in terms of the play calling and the players on the field. If everybody on the field can do it, who's going to guard who? And that will extend to the intermediate game. Got drives, shallow crosses, floods, daggers, comebacks, and curls. Who's going to dominate there? Well, Diggs, Williams, Polk does a decent job on that. That's basically Bourne's best sweet spots in there. I mean, you put Polk on the shallow, Diggs on the dig. That's going to layer crossing defenders. There's going to create a lot of yak opportunities there. You can put Diggs on a deep out. You can put Bourne on an intermediate. And then you get a tight end or a running back going into the flat. Beautiful. That's a 3-level stretch to the sideline. Someone's going to be open. Got the dagger, which seam clear dig. Polk on the clear. Diggs on the dig. Hits dig across the middle after safety clears out. You can call that one up several times a game. And of course, just the basic comebacks and curls. Hollins is pretty good at that. Polk's good at that. But Diggs, Bourne, and then Williams, awesome at that. And of course, going to deep shots, everybody wants to do that. Play action deep crosses. You can have Diggs do the deep over. Polk's with a deep crosser. Booty can be involved in this one. Post wheels, have Polk do the post, and then have the running back come out of the wheel. Obviously, running back, you can take TreVeyon as the wheel. This is Polk's forcing the safety to conflict deep. Back shoulder fade. I think maybe Hollins and Booty might be the best one there. And then scissors, which is a double move, high-low. Diggs does the post corner. You can have Polk do the corner post. This obviously stresses the deep secondary. You can beat cover 4, cover 6 with this. Again, all the tools are there for right now to have an actual deep game. Something that was missing at that time. And then the red zone offense, stacked. Got rub pick moves. You got Douglas and Bourne working that. You can throw Chism in there. Baker should be great in that situation, obviously. Fade routes, you can throw Hollins, also Baker in that one. High-low crossers, Diggs on the high, Bourne on the low. And then whip routes, you get Douglas or Chism. Those guys will definitely get open. Sure hands, they'll be great. It also helps out with just plain situational play calling. Really easy. Like the third and short, so like 1 to 3 yards. Concept, you're doing spacing, option choice, slat slant. Best wide receivers there are going to be Douglas, Chism, and Bourne probably. You can throw Williams in there as well, and Diggs. Diggs in just about everything. Third and medium, 4 and 7 yards. So you got drive, you got flood, the quick outs. Williams, Bourne, Diggs, Polk. Third and long, 8 and 12. Dagger, shallow cross, play action deep. Cross, you got Diggs, Polk thrown in there. Booty, Baker. And then red zone, pick routes, fade, whip. Again, Douglas is going to be in there. Diggs is going to be one in there. Hollins is going to want in there. Chism, Baker on some of those. And then the great one would be 2-minute drill. So just quick outs, spacing, deep overs. Douglas, Chism, Williams, Diggs. Guys that can run just about everything, but guys who can just keep the chains moving and manage the clock. And that's just the wide receiver room. Now, if you go to the running back room, Stevenson, Gibson, TreVeyon Henderson, and now Lan Larison. You've got a power back with soft hands, a versatile, quick-footed running back who's a solid dual threat with Gibson. Henderson, home run hitter, right? Explosiveness, kills an outside zone, has good receiving ability, change of pace, third down weapon. And then Lan Larison, slasher, natural hands, obviously amazing receiver, can play out in the slot. He is a tackle breaker and amazingly a check down weapon. So dynamic depth weapon. Again, I would put him, although not the same size and makeup, but he kind of does have a little Cordarrelle to him. And one could say Antonio Gibson could be that as well. Now looking at that with run game concepts, obviously inside zone would be more like Stevenson and Gibson. You know, power running with Gibson's speed and space, Stevenson for the consistent yardage. Outside zone, you're going to throw in Henderson and Gibson there as well. Now for duo, Stevenson and Gibson should dominate. Physicality of Stevenson, plus the outside bounce potential for Gibson. I think that's a great setup for both of them. Now the counter and power, so like pulling offensive linemen. Yep, Stevenson's going to work there. Gibson should work there. Henderson should be amazing there. The quick feet of Gibson and Henderson behind pulling blockers for an explosive gain. Look out. Because don't forget, Gibson, I think, has like a 4.3 speed. It's just, didn't have the space last year to really allow him to do this. And of course, there's like toss crack. That's where you got Henderson and Larison. Speed to the edge. You obviously also throw Gibson in there as well, showing his quickness in the open field. So, inside zone, outside zone, duo, counter, power, and toss crack. That's 5 running concepts that have been unlocked with the addition of Henderson and Larison. Now, with McDaniels, you can probably use all of them. And that's just the run game that's been opened up. Let's talk about passing game concepts with the current running back group. Texas routes, screen games, check down flat routes, wheel routes, all 4 of the running backs should work here. I would probably put Gibson probably a little bit more than, like, say, Stevenson on the Texas route. Same thing with Henderson. He should be a Texas route guy. But, I mean, screen game, Gibson, Stevenson, Larison should be great in that. And the strengths allow a variety of different situational usages by down and distance. So, like, 1st and 10, you get Stevenson on the inside, Henderson pushing for the outside. That's going to set up some run dominance up between the tackles with Stevenson up the middle, but you can get some edge explosiveness from Henderson. I can definitely see Gibson being used there, like an outside zone or a play action pass. His versatility will obviously make defenders miss and create separation in the open field once either way, either in the outside zone or in passing. 3rd and short, Stevenson, Gibson, probably more power backs, right? You can use Stevenson or Gibson's burst to get to the edge quickly. And then like 3rd and long, 7+ yards, I'm probably going to be bringing in Henderson. Gibson could be in there, and obviously Larison would be in there as well. Passing threats for downfield. And then goal line, Stevenson, Gibson's great in those situations. Notice how like all 4 are kind of needed and have their strengths, right? But then all 4 could be worked in almost every way. Usages in different personnel deployments. Like base 11, I would probably go with Stevenson, and then Gibson in motion out of the backfield would be interesting. You could put Larison or Henderson as a receiver if needed. Like a heavy 12, Stevenson obviously, but Gibson as a backfield weapon would be useful there as well. 21 personnel, pony personnel, very interesting. I would go probably Gibson and Henderson in that situation because that's going to give you more flexible looks. Now, one run back can be in motion out and then become more of a receiving threat like Henderson. Empty backfield, I would probably go more with Henderson and Larison in that situation because both those guys obviously exploiting their receiving ability, but while keeping the defense guessing with more of like quick outs or wheels from that situation. And same thing with the running backs with situational play calling. All 4 of those guys are going to help you out in different situations, right? 4-minute offense, trying to protect the lead. Stevenson, Gibson just grinding it up. 2-minute drill, so fast-paced, screens, check down wheels. You can throw Gibson, you can have Henderson, you can have Larison in there. Red zone, obviously, you're going to have Stevenson and Gibson pounding up around. Short yardage, again, Stevenson could be in there. Gibson can work for, Stevenson and Gibson can work for inside duo or fullback lead options. So it's interesting. I mean, like, if you look at it, your big power is going to come from Stevenson. The versatility really comes from Gibson, I think, honestly, because Henderson, although versatile, but that's going to be his speed and the burst, big play potential from him. The dynamic, really good third down back. You can get Gibson, yeah, you can say Henderson, but then Larison's in there because on third down, he can be in the back or you can put him out in the slot. The way he moves, his catching ability, it's going to be a very flexible offense from the running back position. And for the most part, I mean, like Stevenson's probably biggest weakness and Gibson's biggest weakness might be their pass protection. Larison has shown it, but obviously at FCS level. Henderson's being touted as a great pass protector. All those guys probably still need to develop it a little bit more. And then last but not least, tight ends. I'm going to make this one quick. No, we don't have a Gronk. There's no Gronk here. Hunter Henry's arguably, top 3 tight ends the Patriots have ever really had? I mean, especially going through what the Patriots have been for the last few years. The guy's produced and has gotten beat up over it, but he's been essentially your best offensive weapon since he's gotten here. So, give Hunter Henry some respect. Hooper's still got something in the tank. And now CJ Dippre, that's a really good in-blind blocking tight end they got from UDFA, which could really unlock the physicality that we're looking for, right? Which was critical in 2017 and 2018 with Dwayne Allen. He's going to be your primary blocker. I think a lot of people have been looking for that. Getting him as a UDFA, I could see him making the squad. Lots of questions, but there's enough ingredients to remake an offense pretty similar in terms of construction. Now, talent, actual performance, not really sure, but you can get something in terms on paper that is similar, that will allow Josh McDaniels to go to work with that second dynasty offense. And I think you got a quarterback that can do it. Now you have an offensive line that's much stronger. Things are on the upswing on the offensive side of the ball. And again, I apologize for not touching on the defense, but if you want me to say something about what this draft was about, it is definitely about Josh McDaniels getting the tools to allow him to scheme things up, to allow Drake time to develop, right? Getting some quick hits going, right? Plenty of options. Again, Drake seems like a smart dude. I'm sure he's going to pick it up. It's going to be a lot. They're going to only have a few months here to really put everything together. The pieces to the puzzle are on the table. Let's just start to assemble them. So, what do you guys think about the draft class on the offensive side of the ball? Do you think McDaniels can put this together? Who do you think makes the 53? Who's your favorite? Let me know in the comment section below. If you guys like this content, please like and subscribe. As always, thanks for watching.